My name is Lane, a 32-year-old teacher from Chicago, Illinois. I've been meaning to share my story, not just for my own sake, but to warn others who might find themselves in a similar situation. My journey has been one of love, betrayal, and the struggle for justice, and it all began with the hopeful excitement of falling in love. Reese and I met through our mothers, who had been close friends for years. They often reminisced about their younger days, and when they realized we were both single, they decided to play matchmaker. I remember our first meeting at a cafe. It was a little awkward at first, but as we bonded over our mutual love for action movies and pizza, the tension quickly melted away. Reese was charming and attentive, and I felt an instant connection. Over the next few weeks, we spent more time together and became inseparable. Less than a year later, we married, and I believed we had a bright future ahead. But there was one dark cloud looming over our happiness: Reese's mother, Bea. At first, I tried to be patient and understanding. After all, she was his mother, and I wanted to get along. But as the weeks passed, her presence began to dominate our lives. After our wedding, Bea moved in with us, claiming financial difficulties as the reason. At first, I didn't mind. I thought it would be nice to have family around, especially as we started planning our own family. But soon I realized living with her was like being trapped in a pressure cooker. She tried to control everything, from what groceries we bought to how I managed the house. When I became pregnant with twins, my health took a toll. The morning sickness was unrelenting, and as the months went by, my body ached in ways I never expected. I was exhausted, struggling to balance my teaching job, housework, and preparing for the twins' arrival. One particularly tough day, I sat down with Reese and suggested that we hire a maid to help around the house. "Bea, it's too much for me right now," I said, my voice tired. "I can't keep up with everything." Reese agreed. "I think that's a good idea, Lane. I'll talk to my mom about it." But the next day, when I mentioned it to Bea, she shot it down immediately. "Absolutely not," she snapped, crossing her arms. "There's no need for a maid. I can handle everything." "But Bea, I'm carrying twins. It's not easy for me to keep up," I tried to explain, staying calm. She dismissed me with a wave. "You need to toughen up. Managing the house is your responsibility. I won't have anyone else in my home." The conversation left me feeling defeated and powerless. I had hoped for support, but instead I felt like a servant in my own home. Days turned into weeks, and I grew more frustrated with Bea's constant demands. She expected me to cook, clean, and prepare for the twins while she did little more than sit on the couch and criticize my efforts. As my due date approached, the stress only intensified. 2 days before the twins' birthday, my cruel mother-in-law ordered me to clean the floor. I refused, and in a fit of rage, she snatched the baby's milk feeder and shoved the baby cart hard against the wall before locking me in the room. The twins cried loudly, and just as I thought I couldn't bear it anymore, Reese arrived and immediately unlocked the door. Driven by anger, I planned my revenge. The very next day, I revealed a shocking surprise that would change everything. One afternoon, as I lay on the couch, I felt sudden, sharp pains. Panic gripped me. Reese was at work, and I needed to get to the hospital, but Bea was there, sprawled out in the living room, oblivious to my distress. "Bea," I gasped, trying to catch my breath. "I think I'm going into labor. I need to go to the hospital." She glanced up briefly before turning back to the TV. "That's your problem, Lane. Handle it yourself." I was stunned by her coldness. Desperation surged through me, and I grabbed my phone, calling Reese. "Please, I need you. I think the babies are coming." His voice was laced with concern. "I'm on my way, Lane. Just hold on." The wait felt like an eternity. But Reese finally arrived, and together we rushed to the hospital. The delivery was intense, and after what felt like hours, I finally heard the cries of my twins, a boy and a girl. Reese's face lit up with joy as he held them for the first time, but my heart was heavy. The reality of our living situation loomed over me. When we returned home the next day, I was exhausted but eager to begin this new chapter with our children. However, my relief was short-lived. Bea wasted no time in demanding that I take care of the household chores. Lane, you need to clean this place up, she ordered, her arms crossed as she stood in the kitchen. The house looks like a disaster. I stared at her, incredulous. B, I just had twins. I need time to rest and bond with them. She huffed. You're not the only one living here. I expect you to pull your weight. That day, I felt my frustration boiling over. It wasn't just about the chores. It was about the way B treated me, like I was nothing more than a maid in my own home. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but as I looked at my babies, I realized I needed to stand my ground. It was in that moment of anger and sadness that I resolved to do something about B's behavior. I couldn't let her control our lives anymore, not when it affected my children. I just didn't know how I would confront her, but deep down, I knew I had to protect my family at all costs. The struggle was just beginning, and I had to prepare myself for what lay ahead. After bringing the beans home, I thought things would settle down, but B's control only tightened. Each day felt like a battle between her demands and my need to care for my newborns. Reese was supportive, but he was often at work, and I found myself alone, navigating the chaos. One afternoon, as I fed the beans, B burst into the living room, hands on her hips. Lane, the house is a mess. You really need to start taking this seriously. It looks like a tornado hit it. I looked around, overwhelmed. Toys were scattered, and a few dirty dishes sat in the sink, but I was doing my best. B, I just gave birth to 2 babies. I'm doing the best I can here. Your best isn't good enough, she shot back, her voice cold. You can't expect me to live in filth. Get it together. Frustration bubbled inside me, and I fought back tears. It felt like I was drowning, suffocated by her demands and expectations. I wanted to scream, to tell her that I was a mother now, not just her daughter-in-law, but every time I opened my mouth, her piercing gaze silenced me. As the days passed, I noticed more troubling signs of B's disregard for the beans. One day, I was in the kitchen preparing a bottle for my daughter when I heard her cries from the nursery. I rushed in to find B standing by the crib, looking exasperated. Can you not control them? They've been crying for ages, she snapped. B, they're newborns. They cry, it's what they do, I replied, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. Not for this long, she retorted, pushing the stroller harshly as if to quiet them. My heart sank. The way she handled my children made my skin crawl. Determined to document her behavior, I decided to install hidden cameras in the nursery. I needed proof of what I suspected. B's treatment of my twins was neglectful at best. It was a risky move, but I felt I had no choice. I couldn't let her harm my children without consequences. With the camera set up, I watched over the next few days, horrified by what I saw. B would often ignore the beans' cries, leaving them to wail while she focused on her own needs. I recorded instances where she would harshly shove the stroller or refuse to feed them when they were hungry. Each video I reviewed filled me with anger and fear for my children's safety. One evening, after another long day of her neglect, I sat down with Reese to discuss everything. Reese, I can't keep living like this. I'm worried about the beans. I had to install cameras so I can show you exactly what she's doing. He looked shocked. Cameras? Why would you do that? Because I need evidence. She's treating them horribly, Reese. You have to see this. I felt a wave of urgency wash over me, my heart pounding in my chest as I spoke. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded. All right, let's watch it together. As we sat down on the couch, I queued up the footage. I watched Reese's face shift from confusion to disbelief as he saw B's behavior. He sat still, his eyes locked on the screen, his anger barely contained. When the last video ended, he turned to me, his expression dark. I can't believe she'd do that. We need to confront her. My heart raced at the thought. I know, but we have to be cautious. She's unpredictable. I won't let her hurt you or the beans anymore, he said, determination in his voice. It's time to set boundaries. The next day, we confronted B together. Reese's face was resolute as we entered the living room where she sat reading a magazine. B, he said, his voice steady. We need to talk about your behavior toward Lane and the beans. Her eyes narrowed. What is this about? I don't have time for your accusations. This isn't an accusation, it's the truth, I said, trying to stay calm. We have evidence of how you've treated the beans, and it's unacceptable. Her face drained of color as Reese showed her the recordings. She shifted nervously, the mask of control starting to crack. Those are just moments taken out of context, she stammered, though the fear in her voice was evident. Mom, this isn't okay. You're endangering our children, Reese said, his voice growing louder. If you can't respect our family, you can't stay here. Bee's eyes flashed with anger. You think you can just throw me out? I'm your mother. I raised you. And I won't let you harm my wife or our children, Reese shouted, his voice trembling with emotion. The confrontation was reaching its peak, and I felt a mix of fear and empowerment. For the first time, I saw Reese stand up to his mother, and it gave me hope, but I knew this was only the beginning of a long battle. As Bee stormed off, her face flushed with fury, I felt a deep sense of unease. This wasn't over. We were now in a fight for the safety of our family, and I had to be prepared for whatever Bee might do next. The stakes were high, and I had to protect my children at all costs. The confrontation with Bee left an uncomfortable tension in the air. Reese and I both felt it, like the calm before a storm. We had crossed a line, and I could tell Bee wouldn't let this go easily. That night, as I nursed the beans, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to escalate. The following days were tense. Bee withdrew into herself, barely speaking to either of us. She moved through the house like a shadow, her silence louder than any words. I expected her to lash out, but instead, she simmered with resentment. It was unsettling, and I found myself constantly checking the nursery cameras for any signs of neglect. One afternoon, as I sat with the beans on the couch, I heard the front door slam shut. I looked up to see Reese entering, his face red. I just got off the phone with my mom, he said, his voice tight. What did she want? I asked, my stomach tightening. She's claiming we're trying to keep her from her grandchildren, he replied, clenching his jaw. She says she's going to tell everyone that we're unfit parents. My heart raced. Is she serious? She has no right to say that. We have proof of her neglect. I know, Reese said, running a hand through his hair, but I'm worried she'll go to extreme lengths to prove her point. We need to be careful. I nodded, the weight of our situation settling over me. I had hoped confronting her would bring some resolution, but it seemed to have only fueled her anger. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with thoughts of what Bee might do next. I had heard stories about how toxic family members could turn others against their own, and I didn't want that for my children. They deserved to grow up in a loving environment, free from fear and manipulation. As the sun rose the next morning, I decided to take proactive steps to protect my family. I began documenting everything: Bee's behavior, her comments, and the instances of neglect captured on the cameras. I created a detailed log, noting dates and times alongside the video evidence. I knew that if it came to a legal battle, I needed to be prepared. Later that day, while the beans napped, I contacted a family lawyer I had found online. My heart pounded as I explained the situation, feeling both empowered and terrified. I need to know my options, I said, my voice shaky. I can't let her hurt my children. The lawyer listened attentively. It sounds like you have valid concerns about your mother-in-law's behavior. With the evidence you've gathered, you could potentially file for a restraining order or take further legal action if necessary. I felt a mix of relief and dread wash over me. What if she retaliates? I asked. We can help you with that, the lawyer assured me. You have rights as a parent, and it's important to protect your children. After our call, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I wasn't going to let Bee control our lives any longer. That evening, Reese and I sat down again to discuss the lawyer's advice. Lane, you've done everything right, he said, wrapping his arm around me as I held the beans. If this is what it takes to keep our family safe, we have to move forward. I nodded, grateful for his support. I just want to make sure they're safe. I can't bear the thought of her trying to take them away from us. The next week, we filed for a restraining order against B, detailing her neglect and the emotional abuse we had endured. The process was nerve-wracking, but I felt a sense of relief with each step we took. I was reclaiming control of my life and my family. However, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, I received a call from the fixer. Lane, we need to prepare for a hearing. Your mother-in-law is contesting the restraining order, he said, his voice serious. What does that mean? I felt the world tilt on its axis. It means B will likely try to defend herself in court, and we need to be ready to present your evidence convincingly. This won't be easy, but you have a strong case, he reassured me. Reese and I exchanged worried glances. The reality of facing B in court felt daunting, but I was determined to protect my children. As the day of the hearing approached, I spent every moment preparing, gathering evidence, and mentally preparing for the battle ahead. The stakes were high, and I knew that this was more than just a legal issue. It was about standing up against toxic familial control and protecting the ones I loved. As I held my beans close, I vowed to fight for their future, no matter the cost. The fight was far from over, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The day of the hearing arrived, and I felt a mix of dread and determination as Reese and I walked into the courthouse. The air was thick with tension, and my heart raced in my chest. I had prepared myself as best as I could, but facing B in a courtroom felt like stepping into the lion's den. We took our seats, and I could feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. Reese held my hand tightly, his warmth grounding me as I focused on the task ahead. The room buzzed with chatter as we waited for the proceedings to begin, and I glanced around, spotting B across the room. She looked different, more put together than I'd ever seen her, her face a mask of determination. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. I felt my heart pound as we stood up to present our case. I had never been in a courtroom before, and the formalities made me feel small, but I was determined not to back down. The fixer guided us through the process, and I tried to steady my breathing. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up, my hands trembling slightly. Your Honor, I'm here today because I need to protect my children from their grandmother's neglect and emotional abuse, I began, trying to keep my voice steady despite my nerves. I detailed B's actions, sharing the incidents I had carefully documented. I explained how her behavior had harmed not only me but also the beans, emphasizing their safety and well-being. After I finished, my lawyer presented the video evidence. I watched the footage of B ignoring the beans' cries and treating them with cold indifference. Each clip served as a painful reminder of the ordeal we had endured, but it was also a testament to my determination. I could see the judge's expression change as he absorbed the evidence. Then it was B's turn. She rose, attempting to portray herself as the victim, claiming I had exaggerated the truth and accusing me of being an unfit mother. Her words dripped with bitterness, and I felt the anger rising within me. Your Honor, I interjected, finding my strength, I'm not trying to keep my children from their grandmother. I just want to ensure their safety and well-being. This is about protecting them. The judge turned to B with a stern look. This behavior is unacceptable. The welfare of the children is my primary concern. After what felt like an eternity, the judge finally delivered his verdict. Based on the evidence presented, I find that there is sufficient cause for concern regarding the well-being of the children. I am issuing a restraining order against B, prohibiting her from coming within a certain distance of the family. Relief washed over me as I processed his words. The burden I had been carrying lifted slightly, but I knew this was just one battle in a much larger fight. B's face twisted with fury as she realized the outcome, and a sense of triumph filled me. I had stood up for my family. As we left the courthouse, Reese wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close. We did it, Lane, he whispered, pride evident in his voice. You were incredible in there." I smiled, tears of relief spilling down my cheeks. "I couldn't have done it without you, Reese. Thank you for standing by me." In the weeks that followed, we focused on rebuilding our family life, free from B's toxic influence. I learned how to set clear boundaries, put my children first, and trust my instincts as a mother. The beans flourished in the peaceful environment we created, and I found joy in every little moment. Each coo, each giggle, and each milestone felt like a victory. Though B tried to reach out, I maintained my boundaries. I realized that protecting my children sometimes meant making difficult decisions, including cutting ties with family members who wouldn't respect our family. As I held my beans close, I reflected on the journey we had endured. It had been a hard-fought battle, but I had learned the importance of standing up against toxic behavior, not just for myself, but for my children. This experience had deepened my bond with Reese, and together we created a loving home where our children could grow and thrive. Our story didn't end with the court's decision. It was only the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of a brighter future. I would always fight for my family, and no one would ever take that away from us again.